time I've ever told my stories before now, I've had to omit a lot of stuff. You know, I told the truth, but there are a lot of things I had to leave out. So I don't have to leave anything out anymore. That's really the difference. And I've never actually told anybody like I've left out details of the all my first of all the stories. I've left details out of everything. I really should start with telling you about my friend. Yeah, that's really what it is. The friend I never tell anyone I have. Because I never tell anyone. I still have to protect his name. The place to begin is when I left Wall Street and stopped working for the Swiss government. And I moved back to Portland to get the band back together. And I had to find Fred Challinor, bass player, so that I could get the band together. And my life was just like John Belushi and the Blues Brothers. And I had a vision, and I was going to get the band back together, and I was going to find Fred. And I was on a mission from God to get the band back together. And I came back to Portland, but I had just built a computer system to track the trade of Swiss cheese with North America and Switzerland. So I had all kinds of computer skills, and I was back in Portland. And I started hacking because I was a hacker. The year was 1988, and there was nothing to hack. So I hacked into OMSI, which is the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry. And they had an online modem in 1988, and I said, hey, I'm going to hack into this thing. So I hacked in there. And while I was hacked in, I saw that somebody else was hacked into it. There was another hacker there. And I said, who the hell is 1988 hacking into OMSI? That's weird. I thought I'd be the only guy doing it. Fast forward, so I set up a rehearsal room at a place called the Palace. It was a warehouse. And I got the band back together, and I started rehearsing the band, and Fred and I were playing. And the guy that owned it was a guy who earned his living replacing the felts on pool tables all around Oregon. And he was the pool table guy at all the bars. And he'd come in and do the felt and do the cushions. And he had a friend, the pinball repair guy. So he said, oh, Henry, you got to meet this guy, my friend, man. You got to meet him and you'll love him. He repairs pinball machines. So I meet this pinball repair guy, and he's this like really brilliant dude. And we're talking about computers. And I realize he's the guy that had hacked into OMSI. And so we start talking about hacking into OMSI and laughing. And he's like, oh, you were the other guy. And I'm like, yeah, you were the other guy. So we realized that we were both like the only two people in Portland that hacked into OMSI in 1988. We became great friends. We became partners business-wise, consulting, building network systems, business applications. I ran around putting PC networks together and writing accounting applications, and that's how I earned a living. And this guy was doing the hardware, and I do the software. So little did I know that when I first had... Oh, let me tell you a little bit more about him, right? So this guy became my business partner for about 5 years. He was Polaris Fire Control, what is called a nuke in the Navy. He worked on the guidance system for our nuclear deterrent and on nuclear missiles and ICBMs. And he was an engineer. He was also a SEAL. He was Special Forces. So he was really a combination that's weird, nuke and Special Forces. And he had retired in 1971, so he was a veteran. He was an old man. He was a lot older than me. But we had this business partnership where we did computer things all over town. We built systems. and he was a vet, ex-Navy. He had been in Hyman Rickover's nuclear power program during his service, but that was just the least of it, as it turned out. So, in 1 month in 1993, starting on August 1st, I had an encounter with Bigfoot where my starter motor died and there was all kinds of weird, invisible, telepathic stuff. A force field encompassed me. Then I came back a month later and saw a UFO come out of the ground and take off. And when I tried to get to the spot where the UFO came out of the ground on September 1st, 1993, men in black and a woman in red stopped me. They seemed to appear between me and the place I was going, and they started coming towards me, and that was enough for me when I said, wow, that looks like the men in black. And I just turned around and got the hell out of there. So after these three events happened, the very first month I looked for Bigfoot, I asked my business partner, I just happened to say, what the hell is going on? Because I had had the X-Files trifecta in 1 month in 1993, where I ran into a UFO, Bigfoot, and the Men in Black, back to back to back. And I said, wow. And all of this was at 5,000 feet in the Cascade Mountains on the far eastern edge of Clackamas County. So it turned out that this friend of mine was the tip of the iceberg of the U.S. government's collaboration with what you call Big Feet. And he was actually read into the secret things of the ancient people, as I would like to refer to them, and actually was part of the government working alongside these people that are large, hairy giants. He was working with them to target our nuclear deterrent. They worked alongside in tunnels under Nevada, is what he told me, and they worked on targeting our nuclear deterrent so that it didn't go blow up places where they lived. In other words, so that our ICBMs were pointed at us and not them. So evidently, at that level, our societies intersect, and it is necessary for that mysterious group of giants that we all know to interact with us human beings and the U.S. military. So this was how I began my Bigfoot quest, was hearing this story that this guy told me. And I said, well, that's just an incredible story. That's just completely incredible. But over the years, I learned, no, it wasn't. And, here I am, 2023, telling you that it turned out he was not fibbing, as we say. But anyhow, it took me a long time to understand how these things were all connected and how our U.S. government was involved. And at one point in the year 2000, the U.S. government actually came to me when I was actually getting to figure it out. And they basically said to me, slow down. You're going too fast. You're too aggressive. And I realized what was happening was that the government has some kind of schedule about the release of this information, and it involves Bigfoot. It involves the release of Bigfoot information along with UFO information. And I had become crosswise with their schedule, and they wanted me back in line with their schedule. And they put it like this at the time. things can break in your favor or things can break against your favor. Can you take an order? And so what that order was that I could not talk about this part of things. I could not talk about the government's involvement and about the ancient people, and especially about the scientific revolution that is what the government was so concerned with. Because really, this is about a scientific revolution that the government now wants to share with us, especially Americans, I would think. And this is the time, I don't know why, they've designated to let that come out. And it's very much tied up with Bigfoot. In fact, it's really interconnected with it. And so the same technology that drives UFOs and the propulsion systems is the same technology Bigfoot uses to stay out of sight. More or less. Let's say it's based on the same principles. So this is the kind of thing that I had to shut up about 22 years ago. Now, I know it's an incredible story. But the thing is that in 2022, after we made the first little vignette together, the government came to me again and gave me the green light, and that's all they did. They basically just said, you can tell everybody what you think now. And it wasn't like they told me what to say. They basically just gave me a green light and said, you could tell everybody the completely insane shit that you want to tell them. So I said, all right, great. I'm going to do that now. Thanks, But it was also an event. You have to understand, I never fully believed any of these stories I was told 22 years ago. I always suspended my belief sort of halfway because I never believed anything in my life. I either know, don't know, or I think. I just don't even operate in the belief bubble. And so I was never sure about this until 22 years later when they came to me and said, you can talk. And then I said, oh my God, you mean these fantasies I've had about a scientific revolution are actually real and it's ready to go and it's prime time and here we come. And so, yeah, I don't want to be one of those people that believes in delusions of grandeur, but I think we are on the verge of a scientific revolution connected to learning about Bigfoot. That's simple.
From what your knowledge and what you do know, how did the government make an interaction with them? How does that work?
It's one of the questions I have. That's one of the things I've really been interested in trying to figure out, because I've deduced a lot of this. I've had to make guesses, and a lot of it I haven't had to make guesses. I have knowledge. And a lot of it is stories that I was told 20 years ago. But here's what I've deduced is that there's Hyman Rickover's nuclear power program. When they invented the Nautilus engine for the Nautilus and they developed nuclear power, they worked on many physics experiments, and one of them they worked on was something called the zero power plutonium reactor, where they reached energy levels that were so high that they started to basically be able to make UFO motors, what are called gravimetric motors in the industry, as we say. And at that same time, Bigfoot was involved. Now, what my friend told me long ago, the story I heard 22 years ago, was that they worked alongside on all kinds of technical projects all over underground caves in Nevada. And that Nevada was really stretched into Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Nevada. The underground infrastructure of the American military is very large in Western United States. And so he had told me that he had spent a career working alongside them on all kinds of technical projects and got out in 1971. So his knowledge ends with 1971. But he told me then that he would only explain it to me in question form. This is why it was so messed up. When I'd go, well, what's going on? He'd go, like, what's the relationship? And he'd go, well, who do you think really has power in this dimension? And I go, I'm not sure. American military? Who does? I don't know. So he would never give me a straight answer. That's 22 years ago. So that question did not get answered in the stories or in my life. But I think that their relationship is one of this today. The Big Feet are in charge, and we are doing our best to harmonize with them and become junior colleagues operating under their guidance. That's what I suspect, that our government is beholden to their government. Their big brother's big brother is what I think is actually the case in terms of our relationship. But once again, what my friend told me, that we exceed their abilities in certain technical ways. We're so good at making machines and doing technology that we're actually ahead of them in certain areas. But they, with their native abilities and all kinds of genetic advantages, have advantages over us. And so we're not entirely beholden to them. It's more of a partnership. The fact that the government came to me and said I could go tell my crazy story, I think means that they have a partnership now. I don't think I would have gotten the green light unless they worked it out. Because the green light I got was from both of them, from both parties. It wasn't actually our normal U.S. government that gave me the green light. It was my friend who appeared after 23 years behind me in Home Depot and had a prearranged conversation with me that he said he would have with me 23 years ago. And then we had it word for word, and I realized everything he had told me was true. But it was in that moment that it all really became certain in my mind, when I went, oh my God, the stories they told me, that must be mostly true. Jeez. So, but I had also figured out quite a bit on my own because I had a head start. I had cheat codes over everybody else. Everybody else does not start underground in Nevada on a Navy ICBM project. But that's where my Bigfoot quest started. I was retired. It was after our last interview. And it was 2022, and I never go to Home Depot because I don't like the owner, Arthur Blank. I'd much rather go to Lowe's, and so this was one of the only times, because Heidi, my wife, had $100 gift card to Home Depot. And so we were like, okay, I'll go get it at Home Depot with the $100 gift card. So I go there for like one of the only times I ever go there. And right behind me, and he had squamous cell cancer, a huge belt of squamous cell cancer around his neck. He's older than me, and he looked like he didn't have much time left, actually, based on the size of the cancerous growth. But suddenly I realized he was my friend. That was one of the biggest things, because 22 years ago we had a big falling out, and it was hostile, and he was incredibly hostile to me, and I didn't know if it was a made-up hostility, that he was doing it to save my life, or if he was just being hostile with me because he thought I was a huge asshole, or both, whatever. But when he then came 22 years later to me, I realized, no, he was my friend. He had saved my life 22 years ago, and he was always my true friend. But sometimes it takes you 22 years to figure that out about people, right? Took a while. It was so weird. But the message was, as it always is, they track every single thought and step I take if they want to. Because that was even the case in our last interview, as I said, geez, if they actually want to be aware of me, they can listen to every damn word I say, and I always felt like I was under scrutiny. I was under scrutiny. But why Home Depot? I wondered if they tracked my cell phone. That was my guess. I was like, did they have that cell phone tracking thing? How'd they track me down? The thing is that the circumstances that I feel I now see, my thing about this is I wanted to understand, and I wanted to understand the circumstances. And the ancient people are the brains of this planet, and we are the caretakers. We do not know that, but they are actually a elder version of human being. They're not actually human beings, Homo sapiens like us, but they're like our elders, and they are the brains here. And all the Federation or the other species or all the UFOs come to visit them. They don't come to visit us. They are the arbiter for all things Earth as far as the rest of the species are concerned. That's who's in charge here. We're not in charge, they are. So that's kind of a, upside down view of Bigfoot for most people who think they're chasing an ape in the woods. Their management. I don't know how they got here, and I don't know how long they've been here. There's so much I don't know. I just know, like, if reality was a big rubber fabric, there's spikes where I know things, like I know this spike and I know way up there, but most of it I don't know. It's just an empty sheet of air, and I don't know when they showed up. But because of the tribes that I work for, I know they've been here a very long time, on the order of 15, well, let's say I'm guessing 30,000 years or more, and maybe a lot more, because part of what you start to see all kinds of strange connections. Like the very first story that we've been able to discern in petroglyphs and petrographs is the story of hunting the bear who goes up the mountain and jumps up in the sky and becomes the Pleiades. And we can find the very first 30,000-year-old cave paintings of this story. and go, wow, it's the bear jumping up into the sky to become the Pleiades. Yeah, that's it. Now, in a way, that story could be related to the Big Feet. One of the things that I learned from the Nez Perce in particular is that their creation story is a Bigfoot story. And the Nez Perce tribe was created when the monster, as it is referred to, that is their abstract term, had a fight with Coyote, and Coyote won and ripped the monster apart. And from the different parts of the monster's body, Coyote created all the tribes in America, in North America. From the heart of the monster, he created the Nez Perce. So they built a large, well, they didn't build it. There's a large red rock next to Highway 12 in Idaho called Heart of the Monster. And the Nez Perce believed they came into this world by crawling out from under that rock into this world from caves that were not in this world. So in that story, Bigfoot is totally integral. Now, when I've spoken to Nez Perce elders today and said, hey, Bigfoot, the monster, they've said, there is a connection. That's as much as they've admitted to me, in private. And I know there's a connection. I can assume that. So my point in bringing up this story is we're talking a really long time here. We're not talking these guys came in a spaceship last year or even last century. There are so many oral traditions of them that we don't really know how old they are, but among the tribes, they're very old, and they could be very, very, very old. No one really knows how far back a lot of the oral traditions we have go. So the BBC came to town in 1996, and we filmed me playing drums for Bigfoot, which is still something that gets shown quite a bit. And in 1996, I had persuaded my friend to go on camera. I said, would you actually tell your story like in public? And he said yes. And I brought him, much like here, where we were all set up doing the film we shot in 1996, and sat down, and they interviewed him at length, and they did not believe a word he said and had no idea. And I smiled to myself. I laughed. I said, here I actually have somebody telling the actual honest truth about Bigfoot to an actual BBC film production company, and they think it's horse shit, and so goodbye. And so I tried at the time to do it, but it was after that, you see, part of what happened, now I can say it, what happened was that got the government's attention, and they told him to shut up and told me to shut up. And they said to him, you can't be talking. Why'd you tell that Henry guy stuff? And he said, he's just my friend. He's the guy I talk to. Everybody has a guy they talk to, and I just talked to him. And it turned out that, he told me too much, and I didn't talk about it. So as I would be with all the people all the time, my close friends know about this. Like, in other words, I did always tell certain people I was close to, like, the government's like totally in on this. Like U.S. military and Bigfoot are like lockstep together on a certain level, guys. And my friends just thought I was batshit. But I didn't push it. It's not like I needed to persuade anybody or anything. And then in 2008, when I wrote my book, I came out 2 times I came out and spoke at Toby Johnson's Oregon Symposium, and then I spoke at Patty's Blue Plate Special. And at Patty's, the Navy sent a guy to monitor me. And I couldn't help but notice this spook monitoring every word I was saying at Patty's Blue Plate Special. And Leanne Cisco, who was with me, who was psychic, said, that guy's Navy. And I said, yeah, well, he walks like a Navy guy because, they have a gait that's very identifiable. If you've seen enough Navy guys, the way they walk is unique. So I was like, well, certainly looks like a Navy guy. But the thing is that then I never came out in public ever again until after, 2021. And I spoke in 2021 the first time with you guys because I had seen Dr. Salvatore Pais videos on the internet, and I realized that the scientific revolution I'm referring to was coming out. The Navy had publicized 3 public patents, and I looked at them and I said, yeah, boy, that covers a lot of the same technology I'm talking about. And I said, yeah, man, here they come. They're going to give it to us all. It's Prometheus's fire. They're going to actually hand us a technological revolution for us to capitalize on here in America if we have the courage to seize it. So at least that's how I read the tea leaves. But since they formally came to me and allowed me to rave on like this on camera, hey, I don't know what's going to happen, but we'll see what happens when it happens.